Soaring nerves this Wednesday night about jet fuel running out and airfares rising.
This is the first time the industry is faced with a supply issue.
The tens of thousands of flights grounded for months and the advice to travelers. Terrorism charges against a Quebec man, the sinister ways investigators say he tried to recruit teenagers online. No more dragging it out.
It will save lives.
One country's new strategy aimed at creating a smoke-free generation. Plus, centuries of hidden history.
This section used to be closed off.
Redmond Shannon walks the new path connecting two London landmarks.
Global National with Donna Friesen.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. There are fresh warnings tonight from the airline industry about the impact the Iran war is having on the industry. The war, started by the U.S. and Israel, is now into its 53rd day. It's lasted far longer than the U.S. president initially said it would, and it's caused jet fuel prices to double. Lufthansa says so many of its routes are now unprofitable that it's dropping 20,000 short-haul flights in Europe this summer. The German airline joins a growing list of companies around the world canceling some flights or increasing ticket prices and fees to deal with the rising cost of jet fuel, including Air Canada, WestJet, and Air Transat. Heather Yourex-West reports on how airlines are being squeezed, routes are vanishing, and airfares are rising.
For those looking to fly this summer, anxiety levels are taking off.
That is kind of a gamble that you have to take right now. Like, is my flight back going to get messed up?
I'm a little concerned. I hope it doesn't go up too much, but we'll see what happens.
A global shortage of jet fuel created by the U.S. and Israeli war against Iran and the subsequent disruption of oil shipments out of the Middle East is now setting the stage for a scale of disruption in air travel industry watchers say is unlike anything they've ever seen.
Have you ever seen a crisis of this scale hit the industry?
No, this is the first time the industry is faced with a supply issue, and it's disconcerting. The industry hasn't really figured out how to handle this stuff yet.
What began with price hikes and fuel surcharges has escalated to canceled routes. Air Transat, the latest Canadian carrier to announce plans to slash its services, reducing trips between May and October by 6%, while German airline Lufthansa says it's cutting 20,000 flights.
It's every airline. It's Air New Zealand, Cathay Pacific, United, all having said that they're cutting flights, so much so that the president and CEO of Ryanair, who is quite vocal, has said that it may end up that they're cutting 10% of their capacity between May and July.
Fewer flights this summer will mean already inflated airfares will continue to rise. Travel experts say consumers hoping to fly within the next 11 months should book their tickets now, with a backup plan in mind in case that flight is cancelled.
In Europe, the situation has become so critical. The EU is now tightening its grip on jet fuel supplies, monitoring refinery output across member countries, looking at ways to share fuel as countries begin to run dry. Donna?
Okay, Heather Yourex-West in Calgary, thank you. There is no sign of a resolution to the war that has led to soaring fuel costs. The Strait of Hormuz is still blocked, and today Iran attacked 3 ships in the strait, escorting 2 of them to Iranian waters. Yesterday, the U.S. President Donald Trump extended that ceasefire between the U.S., Iran, and Israel just as it was about to expire. Though, as Jackson Prosco reports, there's no plan for a new round of peace talks.
In the blockaded Strait of Hormuz, Donald Trump's ceasefire extension has done nothing to stop Iran from flexing its muscle. The Revolutionary Guard claimed to have seized 2 ships that tried to pass through. It says it attacked and disabled a 3rd. We did not request a ceasefire. We were never seeking a ceasefire, said this senior Iranian politician, who warned his country had used the pause as an opportunity to rearm. But the American president seems willing to hold out longer for the possibility of renewed peace talks.
The president has not set a deadline himself. Ultimately, he will dictate the timetable. And again, he is satisfied with the naval blockade.
Iran's foreign ministry said the country is still open to the idea of further talks, but remained ready to defend itself. The U.S. says it wants a unified proposal from Iran's fractured leadership.
You have a plethora of individuals and institutions in Iran that are part of the decision-making process, starting with the supreme leader, the president, the parliament. and different advisory bodies around those individuals and institutions.
For the U.S., winning still carries with it the prospect of devastating loss. The European Union warned energy shortages are all but guaranteed.
So, even a best case scenario is a pretty bad scenario for the next months to come, and we will have effects for years.
While Gulf allies and several Asian countries have approached the U.S. about an economic lifeline.
The swap line would both benefit the UAE and the U.S., and as I said, numerous other countries, including some of our Asian allies, have also requested them.
Yet there seems to be no urgency in finding a solution. Iran insists the U.S. blockade is blocking the resumption of negotiations, while Trump seems to be content to wait several more days before deciding what to do next. Donna?
Okay, Jackson Prosco in Washington, thanks. A critical loan Ukraine needs to fight the war against Russia, which has been blocked for months, has now been cleared. EU diplomats gave preliminary approval for the $144 billion loan in Brussels today. Hungary's new prime minister has dropped that country's opposition to the loan. Hungary relies on Russian oil and had demanded a pipeline through Ukraine be repaired. Ukraine says it has been and oil is flowing again. The EU financial package is crucial to Ukraine's ability to keep fighting Russia. The bloc's 27 member states are expected to sign off on it by Thursday. There has been another incident with an Air Canada flight at a New York airport. On Monday, an Air Canada Jazz flight from Toronto to JFK Airport narrowly avoided a collision when an American Airlines regional jet veered into its path on final approach.
Brickyard, you have traffic off your right side immediately at 2,000 feet, sir. Slightly above you now.
We're correcting. Brickyard 4464.
Jazz 534, climb maintain 3,000.
Climb maintain 3,000, Jazz 554.
Initial reports say the two jets came within about 100 meters of each other vertically, and on-board collision avoidance alerts were triggered. Both circled back and landed safely. Last month, 2 Air Canada pilots were killed when their plane collided with a fire truck at New York's LaGuardia Airport. A Quebec City man is facing terrorism charges, accused of promoting and publishing graphic, violent, and highly disturbing content online. RCMP allege his victims are mostly teenagers and that he's linked to a violent extremist group called 764, which Canada listed as a terrorist entity last year. Jillian Piper explains the charges and how the group targets young people.
26-year-old Jeffrey Roussel is the latest Canadian arrested for involvement with the violent online terrorist group 764. Court documents obtained by Global News show Roussel is facing 3 terrorism charges for allegedly using the online platform Telegram to promote and publish graphic, violent, and highly disturbing content with the aim of recruiting teenagers.
764 is known for its targeting and radicalization and victimization of children.
The transnational terrorist group operates by building trust with minors through social media and online gaming platforms, getting them to send incriminating images of themselves, then blackmailing youth to commit violent and sexually explicit acts.
The aim of this is really to bring about or accelerate the collapse of society and undermine our societal values.
In 2025, the RCMP arrested 3 teenagers, one in New Brunswick, one in Nova Scotia, and another in Alberta, for alleged involvement in the 764 network. Shortly after, Canada first recognized the group as a terrorist entity.
Very alarming and concerning trend.
764 also a major concern in the U.S., prompting this public warning from the FBI last year.
764 is a violent online group made up of individuals who seek to coerce and manipulate children into engaging in unspeakable acts against themselves, animals, and other children, even suicide.
Youth involvement in terrorism has increased in recent years, with the director of Canada's intelligence service saying nearly 1 in 10 cases the spy agency investigates now involve a minor.
Clearly, radicalized youth can cause the same harms as radicalized adults. But the societal supports for youth may help us catch radicalization early and prevent it.
While warning signs depend on each individual, some common red flags can include spending considerably more time than usual on devices, new online friendships, and unexplained injuries to a pet or child. Donna?
All right, Jillian Piper, thank you. The Iran war has knocked the trade war out of the headlines, but Canada has yet to settle the prolonged dispute with the Trump administration. There are reports President Trump wants to charge Canada an entry fee for upcoming trade talks. Canada's Prime Minister said today the U.S. will not dictate the terms of those negotiations. As Mackenzie Gray reports, both sides are standing their ground. Mackenzie.
Donna, the Trump administration's top trade representative opened the door to new tariffs on Canada with no carve-out for free trade eligible goods.
These are new investigations. I can't prejudge the outcome or pre-commit to an outcome.
Those investigations, including a new look into Canadian manufacturing, have previously been used as a pretense for additional U.S. tariffs. Any new levies against goods covered under the Canada-U.S.-Mexico free trade deal, something the Trump administration has largely avoided, a potential curveball ahead of the PAC's renegotiation.
It's not a case of the United States dictates the terms. We have the negotiation. We can come to a mutually successful outcome.
Jamieson Greer, the top American negotiator, giving a rare positive indication of the deal's future.
I think there are load-bearing pillars in USMCA that we don't think about a lot because they work well.
But that was followed up with a clear critique of the Prime Minister's bid to diversify Canadian trade.
They're doubling down on globalization when we're trying to correct for the problems of globalization. So those are two models that don't fit together very well.
The Americans have listed issues around cars, dairy, and alcohol as key irritants that got the Commerce Secretary and Democrats fired up.
It is outrageous that Canada will not put U.S. spirits on the shelf. It is insulting.
It is.
And disrespectful to America that they won't
Absolutely.
even put...
And my husband has an interest in a company that has American spirits. And they won't do it because of the insults from this president and comments like yours.
Ontario, the world's largest buyer of alcohol, not willing to change course for now.
Once we get the deal done, which I'm confident eventually we'll get it done, then we'll bring back maybe California red wine.
Well, the CUSMA review is supposed to be done by July 1st. Both U.S. and Canadian negotiators have said they'll blow past that deadline, with the Liberals hoping things drag on even further, Donna, believing the November midterms and economic concerns from the war in Iran will strengthen the Canadian position.
Okay, Mackenzie Gray, thank you. It was dubbed the gravy plane. Coming up, who now owns the private jet Ontario's premier didn't get to keep? The Ontario government bought a private jet less than a week ago, and today Premier Doug Ford said it's already been sold.
So we sold the plane for the same price right back to Bombardier and said, okay, you take it back.
The plane cost Ontario $28.9 million. It was supposed to be for government travel, but Premier Ford faced a backlash for it. Critics called it the gravy plane. His office has not shared any documents associated with the jet's purchase or sale. Ford says the province will disclose those details in what he calls the normal course of action. About half of the province of Ontario is under flood warnings or watches tonight. The provincial government is warning people to be prepared for changing conditions and fast-moving rivers. The federal emergency management minister says the government is looking into a flood insurance program and is in talks with the Insurance Bureau of Canada. But that doesn't help communities hit hard by flooding now. In Quebec, after a tense weekend, water levels appear to have stopped rising, though as Mike Armstrong explains, the threat might not be over.
The sounds of spring on this street on Montreal's West Island aren't birds. They're pumps. 24 hours a day right now, they're protecting homes encircled by water. The one saving grace, this woman says, is that people are used to it.
Everybody knows what to do. We've been through this before. We've got 2 new neighbors on the street, so we come together and help educate them in the ways of the floodland.
Now, the water is still a good 30 centimeters short of the historic levels in 2017 and 2019. 2 springs that are impossible to forget. But there were lessons learned. Montreal's mayor held a press conference Wednesday in a spot where 9 years ago, the water was waist deep. Now there's a berm holding the water back, stretching 1.5 kilometers long.
Like a snake that goes through people's backyard in a way that we protect all the neighborhood.
In 2017, there was damage to 900 homes in the borough of Pierrefonds. The water was actually higher 2 years later, but only 50 were damaged. So far this time, none, but further north, the spring melt isn't done yet.
Beginning of May is when the water is supposed to rise even higher, if we follow the trends of years past.
Now, there is a town about 170 kilometers northwest of Montreal that took it on the chin over the weekend. Most of the water has receded in Rivière Rouge, but about a third of homes are still cut off, and the school will likely be closed for weeks.
C'est un niveau jamais atteint.
The mayor says the town hasn't seen anything like it in 60 years. Dozens of homes were damaged, although at least this homeowner is showing almost shocking resilience.
At the end of the day, like when you tell your life to other people, you always remember this type of situation. So it will be one more story for me to tell to the grandchildren.
Mike Armstrong, Global News, Montreal.
Fire crews in Toronto have begun melting the blocks of ice piled up in downtown Toronto as a promo for Drake's latest album release. Authorities say it's necessary for public safety because people, they say, were trying to melt the ice using flammable liquids and flames. Drake says the release date of his album is frozen inside those ice blocks. Banned for life ahead, how one country is trying to stop the next generation from starting to smoke. The British government is hoping to create the first smoke-free generation. It's put in place a lifetime ban on anyone born after 2008 buying tobacco or vapes. Advocates say it's a groundbreaking attempt to save lives from the leading cause of preventable death. Touria Izri reports on the legislation, its limitations, and what it could mean for Canada.
The United Kingdom wants to stamp out smoking once and for all.
The contents have it.
The British Parliament passed a bill proposing the toughest anti-smoking measures in the world.
It is a landmark bill, my lords. It will create a smoke-free generation. It is, in fact, the biggest public health intervention in a generation.
Children born after December 31st, 2008 will be banned from ever buying cigarettes, even as adults.
And smoking, there's nothing good comes out of smoking, in my opinion. So, yeah, I'm all in favour of a ban.
I smoke personally too, and I don't want my kids to smoke, and I don't think it should have ever been legal.
There is the view that the ban goes too far.
Whatever the age is when you're allowed to buy alcohol, they should be able to make their own decisions and own free will.
British MPs insist it will save lives and ease pressure on the overburdened healthcare system. This has been tried before. New Zealand passed a similar law in 2022, but it was scrapped after a Conservative government came to power. Still, this Ottawa cardiologist says it's a goal worth pursuing here.
As we think about the end game of tobacco, how do we get rid of this extremely harmful, extremely addictive product? Well, this is one of the key steps that needs to be done and made.
Canada became the first country to print warning labels directly onto individual cigarettes. For public health experts, a smoke-free future must include tighter regulations on e-cigarettes and nicotine products.
These products are being marketed to children, to youth and young adults, developing nicotine addiction, the absolute harms of which are well known among youth and young adults.
So far, the Canadian government has no plans to follow the UK's lead by introducing a lifetime smoking ban. But it says the measures it has brought in will bring the national tobacco use rate down from around 11% today to 5% in 2035. Donna?
All right, Touria Izri in Montreal, thank you. A tale of two towers next, a new walking route linking some of London's biggest landmarks. London has a rich history dating back about 2,000 years. After revolutions, plagues, and great fires, it remains a bustling city built along the River Thames. But until recently, it wasn't possible to walk the entire route along the north bank of the Thames between two of London's most famous landmarks. Now, as Redmond Shannon discovered, times have changed.
London, a city of two towers along a riverbank. The Tower of London, and upriver Elizabeth Tower, or Big Ben. For 2 millennia, strolling between these two spots along their shared riverbank had been impossible, until now.
This is all in commemoration of the Battle of Britain.
Few know the city better than history writer Matt Brown.
I remember when it was flat in the water and they slowly raised it.
He took us on a tour of the newly joined up 4-kilometre North Bank walk.
This is the embankment. This wasn't here in Victorian times. We'd have been walking through the water back then. And much of the land over there was privately owned, so it had been parcelled off and there was no kind of footpath through here. Right there used to be a Victorian floating swimming pool, which they froze over in the winter to make an ice rink. This is called Cleopatra's Needle.
Unlike many artefacts in London, this obelisk was gifted to Britain.
Supplemented by these Victorian sphinxes. Now if you look closely at the sphinxes, you can see little holes in the legs. But London was bombed during the First World War by Zeppelins. Well, we're coming up to Waterloo Bridge, the second bridge of that name. And it's not much to look at, but it's got a very famous architect, Sir Giles Gilbert Scott. He's the guy who gave us Tate Modern, and Battersea Power Station, and the London Red phone box. He also designed this, and it was largely built by women during the Second World War, so it's in some ways my favourite bridge, even though it's not the daintiest.
At about halfway, we come to the newly opened section of path that completed the route. A shiny new cover above the new Thames super sewer that maintains a nod to a soggy history.
And there's an old legend that says, when the lions drink, then London shall sink. It refers to their mouths and the Thames water rising. And if it got that high, then it was about to go over the wall.
As Matt explains, the new North Bank walk mirrors the path on the south side, completed decades ago.
This section used to be closed off. This is a private development and it only opened 3 years ago. Before that, you had to divert around onto Thames Street, which was quite a nasty place to walk. You see bits of pottery, bits of bone, bits of clay pipe from before they had cigarettes, and they would just throw these clay pipes into the Thames.
Nearing the end, even locals don't notice this faded Banksy and usually don't realise that this is the only section to require climbing skills at high tide.
And that's it. 2,000 years of history, one walk, first time it's ever been possible, all those landmarks. It's been brilliant, eh?
Thank you very much, Matt.
Thank you.
Redmond Shannon, Global News at the Tower of London.
It is brilliant. That is Global National for this Wednesday. I'm Donna Friesen. Tonight's Your Canada is Unity, Saskatchewan. We'd love to see your Canada. Please email it to globalnational@globalnews.ca. And thanks for watching. Hope to see you here again tomorrow. Bye-bye.